Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing. My name is Trevor Blondeel. Spending 25 years in manufacturing, I discovered the real impact we have on turnover, communication, and the ability to manage change is how we show up. That's the essence of emotional intelligence. In each episode, we bring a guest or message to expand your skills, engage your people, and grow your organization. So let's jump in. We are often discussing how expectations throughout our plants and leadership and other positions continue to rise. And sometimes we feel it's hard to get our heads above water at times, feeling more tactical, less creative, and sometimes less fun. And if you're a regular listener of the podcast, you're already someone who believes that you can do better. But what are those simple actions we can separate ourselves from the noise and the day-to-day interactions to up our performance? We create more memorable moments, moments of just simple magic that surprise and delight those around us when we're intentional and we're having fun. My friend Jon Petz is a 2-time bestselling author, entrepreneur, and magician. And he's here with us today to talk about the significance of that human interaction can have on your operations and your life. Welcome, Jon.
Hey, and I will tell you, having done many podcasts, that was a perfect and awesome intro. You took the time to investigate and learn that. So that was really impressive. Thanks for sharing your time with me.
I just want to kick it right off. We like to go start fast here. And I know you've been working with different manufacturing companies and you are tying this magic into the plants, because when I walk into a plant, a lot of times when I ask, how's it going? I hear same old, same old. But I'm like, man, we can create magic. So how do we do that?
Well, that is a big and bold question to start us off. You're right. We did jump right in, and it's going to depend on where we are. And I think maybe defining that word magic, because that word and that idea brings different things to different people's minds. And if you look at what magic is, it's an art. And I learned earlier on in my career was in professional sales and marketing, really in the technology and the logistics side. But I soon learned that the artistry of magic was part of the art of human connection, the fascination effect. And when you do something diabolically impossible, as a magician, two things happen. And people say, how'd you do it? But then they go get their friends and like, do it again. So how can we create those do it again moments really in a team, in a culture where people want to be a part of creating that love and value driven model in our work environment? So when we talk about magic, it's not pulling the bunny from a rabbit or the quarter like your uncle from behind the ear. It's creating these true moments at work that people value and want to be a part of.
Yeah, because
I didn't answer your question in there, did I? I just defined magic. So I got to answer your question.
It's a good start though, and I can tie that right into that. We get into this just routine, and it's just we get through the whole day. And I was just talking
that's true.
to someone about the difference between busy and productive, right? And rarely do you hear those two in the same sentence. We're either one or the other. Either we're just busy and we're going through the moments, or we're productive and we're having those moments. And I believe that when we're intentional and we have that mindset of, like you said, it's not about the bunny out of the hat, it's about creating that experience. So what are you finding that can then help us with that mindset so we can pull ourselves out of just the routine?
Well, and I love how you use the word intention. Intentionality, I think it's almost becoming too much of a buzzword in a sense, but it's still in its infancy of being the buzzword. And I'll tie it back to magic and the performance art of what I do. When we create something, we have that intentional moment. We know at the end of this trick and or routine, this is going to happen. The lady's going to float, the car is going to disappear. So if you could go into your team members and your day in terms of that production line, or what the KPIs, or what's going to be the outcome of that day, you have the goal. That's your intention. Now, throughout a trick or a day, there's also these organic moments, those, impromptu things that just happen. And how attuned and attentive are you to both those elements when you're looking at, I'm going to talk about team culture and building that culture people want to be a part of. How do people relate to you? Those moments of surprise and delight, which sometimes you don't want surprises in a production line. You want it to run. You don't want the oil dripping off the little leak, whatever little wheel potentially. You want things to go as they should. So if we could have that end goal and have people focus on the idea of what the end goal is, but then embrace some of these true organic interaction moments throughout. And that simply could be, as examples, encouraging people to welcome the new people, because I know there's some turnover. There's shortage of staff. We have so many new people coming in. Those those are simple moments. The greeting, the different line, you'd have competitions between lines, but a friendly competition, making sure we have people who know each other, believe in each other. And I think some of these simplest of moments are really some of the most overlooked as well.
I love the fact of like, do it again. Like, I don't usually feel that all the time,
that's
right?
My hashtag.
And it's like, how do we, because to me, that's the magnet of saying, hey, I want to keep coming in here to work because the people around me just create new experiences. I want them to do it again, right? Because I feel better, even though it's hard, because manufacturing is difficult, right? There's some repetition.
Oh yeah.
There's always challenges. There's that urgency.
Highly competitive in all industries now, highly competitive. So you have to have those metrics, nailing them, right?
Mm-hmm. And how do we separate ourselves? It's those moments. Like, what are the different moments? So what are some stories that maybe you've seen, Jon, where they're creating different moments in our space?
Oh my gosh, I have endless in this space. And I've got in space, out of space. And I'm gonna follow up to something you said. You're right, because the more we create, we can talk about it as a business, but the more we can create the do it again moments. And I always ask people, how great is it, or would it feel when people say that about what you do? Because now you have a team that wants to be at work. They want to produce at least your belt 80% curve. You're always going to have the toxic people on your team, and we correct that as we go along. But having people want to be productive and efficient because they value where they work and who they work with because of those moments is key. So stories related to it in terms of do it again moments. I actually recently I was in a tour. This is a plastic bottle manufacturer. We don't need to say any names of any sense, but watching how some of the people worked. And when I was the supervisor was walking me through and meeting, and I was there because I was doing a presentation for their organization, actually 10 around the country, identifying how that person interacted, and some were very standoffish and I loved where there's one great example. And this was probably a title be a packer. I mean, this is a person on your team, and I know you would have the people listening, who loads the pallets, packs the boxes with aid from equipment, of course. And I loved how he stepped up. And if you want to be aware, I've add on to this. I'm getting ahead of myself. I love how all of a sudden he stopped the supervisor and says, listen, the past few pallets of boxes that we get in, that we're packing in, I think they're doing extra glue on it. Because to me, what that means is now I have to kind of try to open it, and sometimes it's sticking together, so it's taking me another 2 seconds to rip this part of it. Sometimes it rips the actual corrugate off, and now the box is wasted. I know we're wasting money, and I'm like, and the supervisor, he listened, most importantly, encouraged further thought on it. I'm like, and I was just like a fly in the wall. I'm like, I just totally want to see how this plays out. How is he supporting this packer in their discovery and awareness of something that is affecting the profitability, the productivity? And I loved how the person, like I said, stepped up and brought it to their attention. The supervisor listened, thanked him so very much, asked what he thinks that he should do. What do you think we should do? Well, we need to get in touch with the manufacturer. We want to see if this is just a one-off. Do they have different? And he made that person feel so valuable. I felt that was the moment, and not just okay, cool, we'll let them know they got too much glue, whatever it might be. But magic is attention, and giving people attention and having them feel a part of the solution. And there's no magical secret in there. We all like to have attention, and our egos are boosted by it. We hear our name and we talk about ourselves, all these things. But how often, because we're overworked, we're in chaos, you're putting out fires all day long. I get it, but can you focus on that one moment of truly being attentive to someone who is sharing an idea, or encourage others to do that same? So, I mean, there was a very recent, if that's what you're going for, a moment that I thought was true magic in a true production line environment.
How we show up impacts how people feel. How we make them feel determines the extent to which they can engage. And I like to say that results come from deeper conversations. And that's what triggers me when I hear that story, Jon, I could have responded the same way as that supervisor did, but I could have just said, hey, I'm on a tour right now. Thanks for the information. I'll write it down and I'll get back to you. See you later. So that's not magical.
So true. But even more so, I mean, this person didn't know who I was, the packer in a sense. And you're right. If I was the packer, I'm like, hey, this guy is obviously my supervisor, obviously in the middle of something else, but he's stopping everything he's doing to listen to me. Value. Yeah.
That right there is I think the lesson right here for all of our listeners is that you just have these moments that are already there, right? That you're going to have that person that's going to pull you over and identify that there's too much glue. And that intention, going back to the intentionality of how do you make that magical? Well, you make them seen. And I always say that the questions and the dialogue is what is the raw ingredients. And the fact that he asked questions, the supervisor asked questions, he took a little bit of extra time. Well, now it's a game changer. Now like this whole engagement of do it again. So guess what? That operator now, when he finds the next problem, he's going to do it again.
There's so much noise, right? There's so much noise. And how do we do that on a regular, consistent basis? How do we bring that to our forefront of our mind and, create those intentional moments? So, is that surprise, delight, or is it just disrupting the thought process of taking a breath? Let me focus and be present right here with this person.
I believe that that's part of the identity of a plant, of a company. And it's got to start with someone. It can start with you listening, driving into work right now. Like, what's one surprise and delight moment you could find today? Like, you could maybe take what Jon's experienced and twist it a little bit so that you make it a little bit more of a surprise and delight, a little more, and see what happens. Because what are you seeing in as far as like when you see different organizations that you work with, Jon, that maybe ones that are leaning more towards that side and getting some traction on making more of those surprise and delight moments? What are they doing different?
I'd say it's I don't want to just use the word culture difference, but a personal brand difference, and maybe two different mindsets we can talk about. And this can go from a supervisor to a teammate, et cetera, all the way up and down the line. It's the mindset of, I'm here to do this job. This is my job. And you have sometimes, if this is an alternate task that's a part of that job, and you'll have people say, but that's the mindset of, that's not my job. I'm here. That KPI, if we want to talk on that side, is not part of my function. That relationship, I just need them to pack the box most effectively and get it out the door for our on-time delivery, versus the mindset of building humans up and the human connection of, that's why I'm here. People having that sense of purpose in what they do. And I think it's purpose drives your passion to want to do more than just enough to get by. Mm-hmm. The purpose of, that's not my job, versus, no, that's why I'm here, to be a leader and to help people perform at their best. And how can I give them everything I got? When
you're speaking and when you're working with clients, when do they get the aha? Like, when do you see it? Like, is it when the first time they do it themselves, or what starts to turn that behavior?
Well, two answers to that. When they see it and do it themselves, or see the result on their team, which is always a beautiful moment, because it's, wow, that really wasn't that hard. It's just the attentive and the nature to do it. I like when we'll share the ideas, and then really, depending on if I'm doing a presentation, we're doing a workshop style, and then individual team members, we take it down and like, what are the moments in your day? Like breaking all those pieces down. And if we could, and I even have a journalist, what I do in my kind of daily journal is like, if there was an intentional moment I could create today and have somebody feel more about, what would it be? But I'm thinking ahead of it. So the whole thing is the organic versus the intentionality of, if we could proactively create something that is going to be unique, that's going to build or help our customer or help them, what would it be? So then we're already a little bit more aware and attuned to looking for that opportunity. So that's probably the simplest thing of having, and I know you never plan creativity time into your day because there's no time.
There's no time for that, Jon.
That morning, the morning, if you do morning stand-up, I don't know what they may call morning stand-ups or line meetings, the 5-minute meetings, the goals of the day. Oh, kickoff meetings. Is there one thing you could drop in there to put it in someone's mind? This is what we're going to look out for today. Here's how you can make this line better, more fun. And as a result, we're going to enjoy what we do more and be more productive. That was an around the circle answer, but in defining, again, back to, I'm trying not to make it too much as a magician side, but as a magician, you have the old trick. I borrow somebody's I'm doing the finger quotes in the air right now. I borrow someone's money from the audience, and there's a whole routine behind it. But in the end, their money disappears and they win a prize, and it could be a car, it could be a ring, a trip. But guess what they win? For me, they win a lemon. Oh, here's your lemon. But then they cut open that lemon and the money is inside of the lemon, right? So I know before they come on the stage, I know what they're going to win. I know the outcome. I'm building that moment, but and I've done it so many times that I'm good at that moment. But now I'm just looking for the opportunities as I'm interacting with that person on stage of, what else can I do to empower them, to make them the hero of this? What else can I do to make a funny line, to get the audience to react? So the more you have these bigger intentional moments, and that what you're focusing on, these little smaller organic moments can come into fruition, because you're understanding the whole process of how we connect and how people relate.
Building the moment. I like that. And we talk about like the continuous improvement and the culture and the positivity. But the reality is, we have a lot, we run into the quality issue, or we got the fault on the cylinder, or we're coming in late. We're having some performance issues. I mean, it happens.
Those are all real life. Yeah.
But I heard a story the other day that is more of that magical moment, but it was about being late, and it was a consultation. And instead of this leader, instead of the usual of, hey, John, it's your third time late. You know what the procedure is if it happens again. So go get your alarm clock and, let's pick it up. End of conversation. Doesn't feel very magical, but he did a different approach, and he pulls the teammate in and kind of like, hey, what's going on? We really missed you yesterday. Are you okay? Like, cause it seems like you're really enjoying, the role here. When we're having some better numbers on the line, and I know that you're helping out on this, and this is like the third time. So like, what's really going on, man? And then just the results come from deeper conversations. And all of a sudden that person leaves with a memorable moment, because even though it was a negative situation, they turned it into something meaningful. And if we want to change behavior, we got to change the thinking. If we want to change the thinking, we got to have some dialogue. And to make it memorable, it can't be just going through the motions so you get on to the next task.
Yeah. I like how you shared that. And it's you have to meet the emotion of someone you're talking to, because, everyone will respond to that. I mean, some people would have closed up and say nothing's wrong, and there really could have been something deeply inside of them. So there certainly is a relationship side there, but we won't go down the track of personality traits and styles and how to talk to different people based on those. That's a whole different episode with different people and multiple episodes. But and I think that's part of the character of potentially your listeners, the leaders, the supervisors. What do you do on a regular basis to show that you care? That everyone wants to be talked to honestly. We know this is a business. It has to be profitable. We have to do our numbers. And if we don't hit our numbers, then everyone's at risk. Mm-hmm. But there is that sense of caring and genuine interest in their family, their well-being there. And I like that story, how that relates to that very reason. That's why we're here.
Yeah. Make it something different. Now we may not want to do it again to be in the office. It might be the opposite of like, hey, I don't want to do that again because it was memorable in the way that I don't want to sit in there and talk about why I didn't come into work yesterday. It becomes more meaningful instead of just a piece of paper that's just handed across the table.
Well, and sometimes you'll have those, and you've heard this element of something I've talked about, I know before, Trevor, but I call them being the justice. Sometimes we have people on the other side that they feel they're the justice, and people will look at me like, the what? I'm like, you know the word, the justice. And they'll give me that odd face. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, no, you just haven't heard in that context. No, you're dealing with sometimes with people who think, but hey, I'm just punching a clock. I'm just showing up for my paycheck. I'm just a new person. Man, I am just moving pallets. I'm just loading the truck. I'm just supervising a line of a product that I don't use. People oftentimes don't see value, or they belittle the impact of the value they have on that team. Ooh. And even recently, you may know this. Marcus Buckingham did a great book. Marcus did Strength Finders, and he did a book just post-pandemic called Work Plus Love, and recommended, folks. I get no commits, and I'm not anyway financially attached to the project, just so we're clear. But I thought it was a good study about asking all different types of organizations, from manufacturing to sales to whatever. And people really, especially now, have this true sense of want to love what they do or who they work with, or have something more than simply punching a clock. So how can we create that environment? That's what his book is about. And how do you do it? But the fact in the study was, love is kind of a word you don't talk about at work, but that's what his study results. People want that sense of purpose that would drive their passion to want to do more than just enough to get by.
Relationships.
But how do you create it? Well, again, I'm going to say no magical secret. Nothing we're saying here is rocket science, but do we have, back to your word, to the intentionality of identifying this, delivering this, and then truly recognizing and appreciating this on our own teams? There's the mic drop. There we just put it together. There's an episode. Well, those are 3 elements from my last book. So I'll plug that. That's my book.
Well, we'll leave that in the show notes. You recently, just like you were just talking about some of the manufacturing plants that you were at, when they take in some of those ideas, what's been something that the box story is a great one, and is there any other ones that kind of stand out to say, and to help the listener that's driving into work right now? Anything else that story wise that maybe you've heard someone do after you've talked about this that would help?
I do have one. So again, major window manufacturer, let's call it that. So I do like to talk about, is attention to these moments and awareness of these moments, is that something that you hire, or is that something that you train? And I think in many cases, it's best that you personally demonstrate it, because when you explain it to someone, they're like, well, you're telling me to be more aware about how do I, but demonstrating what it means. And actually very, very well, similar to the box story, in that I was on a tour of their facility, learning more about the company so I can do the best presentation. And we're walking through the assembly line, and the person who was showing me, I'm going to forget the issue or challenge with this frame that was being built to this window, but they actually stopped the production line and said, well, listen, when you do it this way, this is what can happen. I mean, you see, when you do it this, it was like the corner bracket. I'm going to forget all the technical terms a few years back, but they stopped the line to help one person better understand what that one action was making, maybe not just for the window. But what I loved was when he finished, this is, it makes it look this way, but in reality, that could in 10 years, it could let water in instead of in 20. He kind of took it all the way to the consumer who was going to have that window in their home, what it meant. And you, Trevor, would you want that window and this caulking part of this window, would you want it to start to fade in 2 years? Or would you want it to start to fade in 22 years? I liked how it helped paint the bigger picture of that one seemingly insignificant task, but what it really meant all the way down the line for the people it's going to impact on a daily basis. So helping people see that quote unquote bigger picture or the purpose of what they do.
And I go back to the memorable, right? Like they'll remember that conversation because it was a little bit deeper. It was more meaningful. And what's going through my brain as I'm learning from you now, Jon, is if we can have that intentionality that the team member or the teammate that we're talking to is an audience. It's not just somebody else that needs to get something done for you or you need something from them, right? Like, are you really thinking about how you're coming across? How are they receiving you? Are you really with them? Like even just looking, and you're right, we could get into a whole other personality thing, but just looking at like, are they in the right mindset to have a moment, right? Or what's going on in their mind? Or do you need to kind of like clear something out first, right? But just being with them in that moment, having that mindset of that audience that you want to surprise and delight them and thinking, man, because I know that I've had a reputation in the past of like, oh boy, here comes Trevor, the bull in the china shop, just wanting to rolling through to get stuff done. And it's like, man, that's not the leader, that's not the legacy I want to leave. And fortunately, I started reading more and getting more influenced and could start to changing some of my own mindset.
Well, and you're the expert, man. You're good at this. You in terms of how you explain it and share it, and you teach the mindset. That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
That's why you're here. That's why.
So as we're wrapping this up, Jon, and we're going back in the plant today, and someone says, "Hey, I heard Jon Petz talk today," and you're just like, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away today?
One thing I want them to take away, I think oftentimes, with title comes authority, but with title does not come leadership. And I think to become leaders, oftentimes we want to conquer relationships. I think that we'll soon learn that a long-term team member, a long-term mutually beneficial relationship, it's nothing that we conquer. It's a series of these simple moments that matter to those that we serve. So how can you identify those moments? How can you deliver them? And I mentioned this earlier. How can you recognize them on the culture of your team? Demonstrate that.
All right. We're going to have some simple moments that are going to turn into a surprise and delight today. How do our listeners follow you, Jon?
An easy Google, Jon Petz, which is a JONPETZ. Pull up the book, Significance in Simple Moments is the latest book. Just went into paperback. It's a 6 printing now in paperback form. I just got one. It's kind of like, wow, it's real. It made the hardback paperback, but reach out. I'm an easy find.
Awesome. We'll leave those links, and appreciate your time and making manufacturing more of a surprise and delight place to be.
Create that culture on your team. Enjoy. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Hey folks, appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Haven't subscribed yet? Do it now. Remember, if you want results, the key is increasing your awareness of how you show up.